Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Mayan Speedplay number 25. We left off with troops right off the coast of Madagascar, large armies basically everywhere, and revolts not immediately about to happen. So what we're going to do is, first of all, go to the other side of Madagascar and then declare this war, and we're just going to drop a 30 stack on them and probably just annex them through that. Now, we do get met on the beaches, however, that doesn't really help them all that much, and it looks like immediately we'll just be able to roll through their country and fully annex them. Eventually, we're going to want to just roll up the rest of the eastern coast of Africa and hopefully get a trade company there. We might just make these two other countries into protectorates, although I do just kind of like the idea of direct control, even if it isn't technically beneficial. At any rate, we do go ahead and just charge right on through. It looks as though we're going to win this war basically immediately since their armies are completely gone. And there we go, even without still fully sieging them out, they're ready to surrender. So we go ahead and just annex them, core what we can, which is just everything on the coast. And now we have to worry about a few revolts potentially breaking out just in various areas, mainly Brazil, which is always looking to fight us. And we go ahead and build up a new army. We're probably going to build up another navy as well, just because, honestly, having navies is the most amazing thing for us. They are the epitome of useful things. At any rate, though, the rebellion in Brazil breaks out. We go ahead and just move this Brazilian army down. Evidently, they all kind of clustered around that area. We build as many mercenaries as we're actually able to build, which is a kind of worrying thought, as I had hoped that we would have a, I guess, just wider, not really swath, but I guess a deeper pool of mercenaries that we could dig into as, you know, necessity required. And that just did not end up being the case. Doesn't matter all that much, though. We do have roughly 120,000 men in our military, which is, you know, pretty decent. We do go ahead and just win against all of those various rebels. And now we could maybe even get our forces and take them to somewhere completely different. In this case, Tunis. Now, the idea behind going to Tunis, as I've previously mentioned, is that they have a lot of cores on Aragonese lands, and we can basically just take them all back for Tunis. So we do go ahead and build up that new transport fleet. That was what that little screen was for just a moment. And if we take over Tunis, we basically get a free shot at all of North Africa, probably turn them into a march or something so they're not so rebellious. We do get a revolt over here in Southeast Asia, which we attack with a 2-star general, and which goes decently well. Alright, so the plan is basically just take a large number of troops, and then declare war, and then drop off the troops, and then just swarm over Tunis. It's a pretty straightforward plan, and they don't have any allies, so I don't really foresee there being any difficulties in the actual fighting of the war. The biggest difficulty we may face is that we do still have rebel factions in our country, quite a few of them in fact, and if we aren't very quick on the ball with this, we might have to transfer forces over to other areas in order to prevent rebellions from really just doing quite a bit of damage to our country. Alright, so here we are, just waiting, sieging out their fortresses. We're also going to colonize paths to all of the native groups still in North America. That way, when we do declare war, since a bunch of them are allied, we'll just be able to annex them all in a single war. Now, there's no real reason to do that, it's just slightly more convenient for me. Alright, and we managed to win against one of the two Tunises. There are kind of just two because of how they've been divided up, so they'll probably really appreciate us just reforming them, in the sense of it will really increase our relations. We have a coalition now, which is of the Ottomans, Brazil, and a place in Southeast Asia. That's very unfortunate, as we do want to clean up the rest of Brazil before the end of the game, and I wasn't really looking forward to fighting the Ottomans. Nevertheless, it's the burden we bear, and we will have to bear that at some point. We do go ahead and deal with the Madagascar rebels, and it looks as though we've managed that fairly successfully. And just like that, we've taken over everything we can in Tunis. It looks like they'll just accept vassalization, and we do go ahead and take their island just off the coast, simply because it gives us a nice little staging ground into just the Mediterranean, even if Tunis does at some point become disloyal to us. Now, we could go to war against Blackfoot, however, they do have allies we don't touch right now. Basically, their allies are the only two we don't touch right now. as kind of inconvenient as that is, so we'll hold off. Now what we will do instead is probably declare war on Aragon. Now, before we do that, we're going to just destroy the one native state we actually do touch, because we have an army there, and I do want to get at that eventually. So we do just go ahead and attack, and it looks as though the siege won't be too long, and in fact it ticks over the very first time it has the opportunity to, which is pretty spectacular. And we have a slight amount of attrition, but nothing too terrible. And if we had timed this better, we could have intercepted that Aragonese army as they just stepped off the boats, and probably destroyed them. So it's a bit sad that we missed that. We'll probably still fight their navy pretty handedly, but we've defeated the British Imperial Navy, or I guess Royal Navy, and did that pretty one-sidedly. So I don't really fear the Aragonese Navy. And if we're able to just rush in and take the fortress on the African side of the Straits of Gibraltar, then we will be able to cut all their armies off in Europe. So that's the plan, and if they do come and attack us, they'll have a very bad time of it since they'll have -2 for crossing. There are apparently Venetian allies, which I couldn't legitimately find for a moment. They're over here on that island off the coast of Greece. So we could also just go to war, call in Venice, and hopefully, or have them call in Venice as a full ally, and then we'll be able to just seize more islands in the Mediterranean to later fight the Ottomans. At any rate, our armies just charge on in. We do fight and defeat the Aragonese navy. Tunis is stepping in with a few troops. That's awesome, Tunis. Well done. And yeah, we're just going to drive on up to the mountains, park our troops right there. It looks like they considered attacking us but didn't. We're also at war with Morocco, so we'll try to get Tunis a land path over to them, and then we'll just give them all the lands we take in Morocco, or maybe vassalize Morocco. We lose that battle, which was terrible. We go ahead and now need to really worry about saving this army. So I apparently always have this tendency to really overestimate the quality of our troops. We force march into the boats and escape. We barely escaped with that army. And I'm pretty proud that we did, because that would have been a very, very sad thing for us if we had just let that die. At any rate, we now have essentially a World War I style front line. And we're just going to stay here until the siege of that northern fort finishes. We did put our 2 siege general in charge of it, so it hopefully won't be too long. And we do have an army laying in reserve to just go and make the Aragonese regret attacking us if ever they decide to. And speaking of if ever they decide to, it looks as though they've decided to. So we're going to pull as many forces as we can, force march those guys, and get them to charge over there. Meanwhile, we do just kind of colonize a bit, and we're back to here. We do win this battle by the looks of it. We are just doing very well. They reinforce, but it doesn't matter. We made it. We undid that initial defeat, essentially, and proven that we can stay on this North African continent. So with that said and done, we do still have to worry about the fact that their forces are rather significant. We can keep moving up, basically just a province at a time. We put our ships in position so that we can actually get a decent level of intelligence over what they're doing. And it looks as though Brunei has joined the coalition against us as well, which is a bit unfortunate. And now we're going to just try to not have this Aragonese army do anything terrible to us. It's a rather significant force, but if we could have just brought all of our forces to bear against it right then, that would have been great. We try to cut them off, however, we're too slow, and they're going to get there first. So what we're probably going to do is just split our forces apart. We need to be able to defend in a way that forts won't really negatively affect us and our troop movement and capacities in that sense. We do go ahead and pluck up that last army from Madagascar, since they have roughly 100,000 men against us, and we have vaguely 90,000 men, which is not exactly a pleasant situation to be in, especially if our troops arguably aren't better than theirs. They considered attacking us but decided against it, which is pretty great news. We charge up to the fort, but they charge up to the fort as well, so we get out of there because it's on dry lands, which does not give us a benefit for being defensive. And if we are going to fight them, I would very much prefer to either have overwhelming superiority in numbers or terrain defenses on our side. So on the bright side, we've kind of trapped them on the other side of North Africa, and if we really wanted to, we could just go into Europe and take all of their European holdings. Now, I'm not going to do that in part because that's a little ridiculous, and also it would lose all of our North African holdings, which isn't quite worth it since I think we can win. Alright, so we have 4 armies. We go ahead and group them all more or less together in a way so that the Aragonese can't really do much. It looks like we'll beat them here, so this is going to be the location of our first fight. And there we go. We outnumber them. What are they going to do? We've won that battle. We send one force up to unsiege that fort, or re-siege that fort, however you want to call it, and the other group is now just terribly out of position, and we can send our remaining forces over to just encircle it and slowly cut down the amount of space it has to just sort of dither around in until they run out and fight us and hopefully lose. Alright, so that fort's gone, which is great news. We are continuing to colonize, which is pretty much just always going to be happening. And it looks as though we're fighting them. No, never mind, they decide against it. And we're just going to go ahead and encircle them, since we have 4 armies slightly smaller than their 1, and all of them combined are just massive. And it looks as though we could easily take most of North Africa, just not the entire thing. And they retreat even further back, which is decent. Now they're going to fight us, which is even better, because that has a bit of a defensive bonus for us. So we bring all of our armies to bear and just stack wipe them, which is great. That was about 50,000 Aragonese soldiers, no longer even vaguely in existence. Unfortunately, we get another rebellion in Brazil. Luckily, we have all of the transports basically in the world with us now, so we're just going to transport over 2 groups and just smash that rebellion. Just smash it in a way that will just undo it for all time, hopefully. Or basically just devastate them in a single war, single battle. Alright, so that's all done. We've secured Northeast Africa. We're building up our mercenaries, just as many as we can build, as is kind of our way recently. And we're just going to smash these rebel armies. It looks like the first one goes decently well, and the second one a little bit less well, but still decently well. We build 2 more mercenaries, and they just go to siege the areas, and we'll send the rest of our troops back. Alright. So, that all said and done, more colonization, more looking over at the lines. We do manage to just finish those sieges, so we go ahead and load all these groups together. We would have to lose a couple groups, so we just go ahead and consolidate them and bring them over. The Moroccans and Aragonese are bringing their forces back to bear against us, so we could end up just kind of halted right there. Another thing we need to consider is that we are also at war with these Eastern Mediterranean island states, and they're occasionally dropping forces on to just nip us in the rear. So what we could probably do is, since the line is pretty decently well formed at the moment, what we could do is just go deal with all of the issues in the rest of the Mediterranean. But that is a event for next time. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.